Hey, Holly, we're in the pre-show chit-chat bit where
Ooh.
we get to... Ooh. So, tell me what the weather's doing in... now, do you call it is it the Shell Harbour region or the Shoalhaven region? Or
No, I'm a little bit further north.
Okay, so what region do you call it?
Okay, so I'm on Dharawal country in Wollongong. So it's sunny today, which is quite unusual, it feels, for this year. We had rain overnight, but it's now blowing a gale. So it's still not nice outside weather.
No.
Despite the sunshine.
And have you had like days and days of it?
On and off, yes. Saturday was absolutely beautiful here. It was an absolutely glorious day. Yesterday, it threatened rain all day and was pretty dark and gloomy. So it seems to be a bit of a lucky draw every morning at the moment as to what you're waking up to. But thankfully, we're not raining and we're not flooding, which is excellent.
That is great. Let me just got to get the tweet out. So we'll get your we'll do your tweet. I really like the picture. We're going to talk about that too.
Okay.
That's why I've got Twitter up in the thing. So tell people that we're live and that the chit chat is on. Oh, got a comment already.
Oh, fabulous!
Hi, Mod. Nice to see you. I'll save that for the screen for when we're actually not doing pre-show chit chat. You were very quick to jump in, Mod. That's really good. My park. Have you been following what I've been talking about with my magpies, Holly?
Oh, refresh my memory.
The male of my family group I found him dead on the neighbour's lawn across the park. And for a couple of days, we had a new adult female arrive and start cooperatively feeding the fledglings. But now we have a new male, and in the group, 2 adult females and an extra fledgling. So have we now got the Brady Bunch in Magpie Land?
Oh, interesting.
And people have been telling me, no, that never happens. That's not possible. Well, it's bloody happening, I can tell you. So, yeah.
That's really cool.
Really weird. And, and I did post a far away picture of the dead magpie so that people would know that it was true. Welcome Twitch, welcome Facebook, and Mon is here. Okay, we're about to run the video, and then we will be actually doing the show. Okay? I think the mics will be muted, Holly, while we're doing this.
Okay.
All right, here we go. Let me remedy this situation. Hello, bird nerds. I'm Grant. I'm a bird nerd. That is Dr. Holly Parsons. She's the smart bird nerd in the room. Holly, manager of urban bird programs at BirdLife Australia. Welcome back. It feels like forever since we've been doing this.
I know, it does, and I've really missed it. It's work gets busy a lot, and so I'm back, and I'm keen to just relax and talk birds. Much nicer than
and hello, Mon.
And things. Hey, Mon.
Hello, Mon, on YouTube. That's nice to see you. Holly, tell me about writing grant applications. Now, you don't have to tell me what you're applying for and who you're applying from, but in this conservation space, that's a huge part of the work you have to do, isn't it?
It really is. And so, yeah, I've just applied and crossing everything for a reasonably big grant to continue some of our work. We need funding to be able to run our programs. And in the urban space, sometimes that comes through some fantastic donors, and that's always amazing. And a lot of the time it comes through grants, like it does for a lot of conservation. And so you're constantly trying to look for where the money is, what they require, and then getting through the forms, because obviously you have to justify why you need that money and really think out your projects. So it takes a lot of time,
So I don't want to get too bogged down, because we're going to talk about our favourite bird visitors into our gardens, or like for me, it's into my park, and then some of our favourite encounters, adventures with birds. So it's going to be nice and wide ranging. But the whole reason that I'm doing what I'm doing is to try and get people involved and to draw attention to some of the issues in this space. And continuity of funding is a massive problem. And people might be surprised to think that, well, BirdLife, what have you got, 70,000 members, I think?
No, we have nowhere near that number of paid members. Paid members is much smaller. But we have a huge supporter base in general. You don't need to pay to be a part of the BirdLife family by any stretch, but you get a few bonuses if you are.
Yeah. But to think that something as big as BirdLife has a minuscule amount of guaranteed ongoing funding from government, and is there something like BirdLife within government? The Department of Looking After Birds? No. Is there a Department of Birds in your local council? No. Does the state government of New South Wales have a Let's Look After Birds department? Does Hobart? Does Tasmania? No. So they farm out all that stuff to BirdLife, and then they go, find some generous people to fund your activities. So, again, I'm going to get in trouble, Holly. I'm going to say, call out bullshit. Do you know I got some... look, I think it was Chris. Thanks, Chris. I take it on board. Good show, Grant, but language. So... I can't promise I won't say sweary words when I get worked up about this, because I don't think niceness is getting us anywhere. I mean, like I always say, Holly, which birds are more common now than they were 20 years ago in Australia? And I can think of 2 for sure, 3 for sure.
Okay.
But I can't think of more. I would say white ibis. I would say rainbow lorikeet. Yep. And what's the other one? And I would say silver gull.
Okay.
I can't think of any others which I could reliably tell you are in greater numbers, occurring in greater numbers than maybe in 1984 when I finished, when I embarked on my academic career. Mon's thrown in noisy minor. Now,
that would have been mine too, yep.
Now, my anecdotal story about noisy miners, when I moved here, 2014, this park was full of noisy miners. Now, I have to go down to the shopping centre to find noisy miners. It's all red wattlebirds and little wattlebirds and yellow-winged New Holland honeyeaters here. So
that's great.
Well, kind of great, but I don't know whether the red wattlebirds are now the problem that noisy miners were, right? Because red wattlebirds, the other 2 birds that can coexist with them are pugnacious, like the New Holland Honeyeater is punches well above its weight.
Yeah, they're crankiness in a tiny package for sure.
They certainly are.
But they often can't coexist with something like a Noisy Miner. So yeah, it's all a very delicate balancing act.
I think that's the weight of numbers because, the family group here of yellow-winged honeyeaters, New Holland honeyeaters, is, I don't know, 7 or 8 that seem to live around my couple of flowering eucalypts. The number of red wattlebirds is much greater, far less little wattlebirds. But the Noisy Miners, when I first came here, there were 20 or 30 of them, and they mobbed everything. But they're gone. I haven't seen them for a couple of years.
They're certainly in some other places, though, Grant.
Yeah. No, I know, but it makes me wonder whether I'm seeing that sort of transition in an area that might happen. Maybe the red wattlebirds, if they get their liking, are likely to push the others out. So anyway, that's my little talk. We've got some news, Holly.
We do.
Some news. Will we go straight to that? Let's go.
Sure.
Let's go straight to that. Let's tease it a little bit. What would be good news in the bird world? Would it be a presumed extinct bird in one state no longer being extinct?
That would be very nice.
So here we have the story, which popped up on ABC, Mildura and Swan Hill, and it centres on friend of the show, Simon Verdon from La Trobe Uni and his team that have been working on the Mallee emu wren in Mallee, the far west, northwest of Victoria and the neighbouring part of South Australia, and they have found the white-bellied version of the western whipbird, which was presumed to be extinct in Victoria. And looking at my bird books, Holly, it doesn't look like it's been commonly seen anywhere, even though it was still known in the Yorke Peninsula and Eyre Peninsula in South Australia. So that's good news.
It's excellent news. Excellent news. An amazing discovery, by Simon and a team of volunteers who were out doing some field work. They were trying to find. I think they had a range of about 10 species that they were out there looking for, and struck gold with a white-bellied whipbird. Sorry. So
let's give the Twitcher bird watcher kudos to Lockie Wild.
Yes.
24 from Bendigo. He recorded the bird during his 2-week stint in the Parks Victoria Managed Desert Scrub, and I do like what Simon said. Where are we? Simon Dr. Verdon had not believed the bird was still in Victoria, but we still searched for it because I was open to being wrong about that and really happened to be proven wrong. The birds have probably gone through a lot of tough times and they're still there, which indicates some level of resilience to things like droughts and large wildfires. Spot on, Simon. And good on ABC for covering it. But you would have thought that it would have got a bit more coverage.
Mickey Perkins did a good article in The Guardian on it as well.
Oh, good. Well, that one whizzed past me. I'm not. I generally only get ranty politics out of the Guardian these days. I was going to say in the Guardian I do get all the Enviro stuff. So if it was in the Guardian, I would have seen it. Is this really good news, though, Holly, in that you have to... This bird is still so extremely limited in where it occurs, and the the habitat is so at risk for fire, particularly, and it's so fragmented. So it's really bad news, isn't it? In that we've still all the bad things are there. It's not.
Yeah, look, I guess it depends on if you're a glass half full type of person. Look, I think it is so hard, and it's so sadly it's so rare to have a good news story come out in conservation issues in Australia. Or anywhere. I think we do need to take the time to celebrate when there is a good finding. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think especially us conservationists probably don't take the time to celebrate a good story too much. I think it's good for us to enjoy that. But you're right. The next step is, okay, there's a bird there. They're there. What are our next steps? And so this sort of story is really good for, putting that issue back on the map, for reinvigorating, the scientists and the conservationists who are out there, struggling away and getting all those zeros to finally get a 1 in the column is always really great. And so the next step is, reinvigorating some research and sort of driving some efforts to, get a good search of those areas to find out what sort of populations are being dealt with, and then tackling those ever ongoing habitat management issues which are there. So I don't think it's bad to celebrate a win. I think it's really important to do. Maybe I'm in a really positive frame of mind today.
That wasn't the angle I was taking. That we shouldn't celebrate the wins. No. Absolutely. We should celebrate the wins. It's great that it's been seen, and it's great that we know it's there. But I don't want people to think, oh, well, that's great. The bird's resilient. We don't need to worry as much. They've hung on for so long. Isn't that great? That just means we're bloody lucky that they're still there, and we need to double down on the efforts.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. I think I think you're right. I think, of course, it means that we need to actually do something. But I don't think for anybody involved in this work, it would be, phew, they're resilient. No. For anybody involved in that work, it's thank goodness they are still there. Right, next step, on we go.
The point I'm making is that it can be used by decision makers and whatnot to abrogate responsibility to take further action by going, well, no, they're still there. We don't need, it's not an emergency, fellas. These birds are resilient, so they'll be right. Whereas I think that's rubbish. Now, would we like to hear what it sounds like? I think this will play okay. Let's see. There we are. Did you hear that all right, Holly?
A little bit. It was a little bit in and out, but hopefully it came across okay.
Yeah, it was certainly loud in my ears. So that's what you've got to listen for if you're out in the Mallee in the big desert area. Now, what I think, I'm not sure how many of them actually in the end saw the bird, but there were 58 volunteers over 2 weeks on this trip. And they were looking for 10 rare birds, and there's an idea of where they were looking. We've spoken about this area before when Simon spoke to me about the translocations that his team did at Latrobe of the Mallee emu wren. So you can go back in the archives and listen to that episode. Lots of good photos too about what that environment looks like, what that habitat looks like. Holly, do you think that there's maybe more than one of these populations hanging on? Like, I know you haven't got any data to pull from, but being the glass half full person that you are, do you think that maybe Simon and the team have discovered one population, but that there might be a few others out there?
Oh, I think I'm the wrong person to ask. I think Simon. We need to ask Simon that question. I think he would have a much better feel for what the state of play is in that region than I would.
You'll be shocked to know, Holly, that I have invited Dr. Verdon on for a celebratory lap of honour about the white-bellied Western whipbird.
That's great.
What are we going to call it?
I honestly don't know.
What are we going to actually call it, Holly? Are we going to call it the white-bellied whipbird, as ABC News did in their article, or are we calling it the Western whipbird subspecies? What is it? Leucogaster, I think.
Yeah, well, once again, it depends on which taxonomic list you are working off. So in BirdLife, our BirdLife working list, they are a subspecies of the Western whipbird. So, yeah, it depends on your list. I think, in amongst the public, I think, the white-bellied whipbird is a great name to use. If we're doing data analysis, then potentially we have to be looking at sort of specific subspecies names and things, but yeah.
Definitely. Why is it there? It's supposed to be gone. Be gone, screen. There we go. I was so happy to see that article. Really, really happy to see that article. But again, that deflating feeling about how much Mallee is left, that just sort of has to make you cry. If you've seen the Western whipbird, let us know in the comments. Oh, Holly, shameless plug too. Following our chat, 2:00 this afternoon, Australian Eastern, I'm speaking with Sarah Comer about the Western whipbird, which is critically endangered in the Perth region, in the southwest Western Australian region. So that's one of the birds that we're going to be talking about, but not this particular subspecies. So that's pretty cool. All right, Holly, I need to get your tweet up because we're going to talk about... here we go. Let me get to here. Let me share the screen. Talk among yourselves.
Okay, no worries.
Actually, Holly, tell us before I unveil. Here we go. Share this. That's your favourite visitor to your garden.
That's my little favourite. That's not my photo.
That's not your photo?
No, it's not my garden. Full credit to Leanne Ledden, who let me use her image from her garden. But yeah, look, I don't know. I think it's been such a big year, and it's been, I don't know, coming off writing a grant and being really detail oriented. I thought it would be really great. I sort of jumped at the chance, Grant, when you suggested talking about your favourite garden birds and bringing it back to, what we love about our local bird life and what we see in them. I think this is a great topic to talk about today. It doesn't negate all the awful things that are going on, but I think it's nice to sort of celebrate our urban bird life. Satin bowerbirds are my favourite visitor in my garden. I don't have a huge diversity of birds visiting my garden, I will admit. It's not, despite my planting efforts, which are on their way. It's not I don't have an exciting list of 30 different species that visit me, but my satin bowerbirds are probably my favourites. And they're not around at the moment, but they were around a couple of months ago, and they're probably due to come through again soon, I think. They've got some personality. They come in and cause a little bit of chaos. They're always making that really great raspy, screechy noise. And they're super fun to watch. I really enjoy them.
What? Tell us about what you like about the satin bowerbird, and let's be clear, that's the female satin bowerbird in the picture. And tell us what you know about what they do, because you just said they're not around at the moment, but they'll be back. Tell us about the satin bowerbird.
So satin bowerbirds, that's a female, or it could be a young male. So
yeah, actually, the more I think about it, I think it's a young male because he's picking up presents to decorate a bower. I would think he's practicing.
Yeah, exactly right. I suspect it is a young male. So. And young doesn't necessarily need to be young. So we all know satin bowerbirds by the dark inky blue males and their bowers. But it takes 7 years for a male to get that adult colouring. So, prior to that, they're running around in this sort of olivey green colour, looking just like the females. And I love... the bowers are amazing. They're this, extraordinary structure. The boys go to all this effort to decorate them and, line them so they all sit up beautifully, with that characteristic U shape. Sometimes you'll see like a double U, like where they build sort of two. But, I love that it goes kind of beyond that too. Like he does all this work, but then she gets to come in and decide whether, she's impressed by his efforts with his little flowers or his little bits and pieces of blue things. And, it's one of those characteristic bird situations where he builds the bower, he mates with the female, and he's done. Like she's on her own. She goes and builds her own nest. She lays the eggs, she raises the young all by herself, and she just gets on with it. And I think that's great.
So
good on her.
A couple of questions about what the bowerbird does. We've got extreme sexual dimorphism in terms of how they look. A mature satin bowerbird is dark, almost metallic blue. Far more like the colour of the eye of this bird, but depending on the light, could look almost black. But the male makes the bower, draws in the females. The males are territorial, right? So, do the females, are they not territorial, or do they move? If this guy, this juvenile here is trying to woo many women, many lady bowerbirds, does that mean that the females are not territorial and they can all nest nearby, or do they then, is it a root and boot situation? That they're popping in, they're heading to the party, and then they've come to a B&S. They come to the Ute muster, and then they're going back to their properties.
Yeah, look, you'll often get masses of females and potentially young birds coming through. So when I have bowerbirds coming to my garden, it's generally not just one. There'll be 3 or 4 coming in and looking for some food. And while the male is the one that, has to go to all the effort and construct all the bower and make it look beautiful, ultimately it's female mate choice here. She will come and inspect that bower while it is being built. When he is there or not, she will come back when he is there. He will put on a display for her. She will shop around and check out any other bowers in the area before she decides who it is going to be. So it's very much, down to female mate choice in the bowerbird family. So, he's got to work hard. Like he's got to put in some effort to make his bower look fantastic, and he has to parade himself around, to the best of his ability. He's got to have some good dance moves as well. And ultimately it's her that she decides which male she thinks is the highest quality based on those features. And it's not just a one-off visit, it's multiple visits and checking things out. And then she just goes about her business and looks after her kids.
So that tells me that the males establish a territory and the females are not territorial.
Yeah.
So Now, is that unusual with birds that don't form a pair bond?
It's probably reasonably common for things like your bowerbirds and similar. Most birds do tend to have that pairing off. So I guess the other brush turkeys, for another example, brush turkeys will have their mound. The male will build his mound, and then the females just wander around and find the mounds that they like without being particularly territorial. It's the males that will hold the territory. So look, it's not uncommon, but without going through and analysing the different breeding histories for different species, I think definitely your pairing, at least for a breeding season, is much more common. But this sort of male holding territory is sort of probably the next phase, or the next common sort of structure.
It's a cool picture, that one, because well done, Leanne. I think he's holding Scaevola flowers.
Yeah, and I think so too.
And I'm not sure whether that's an Eremophila behind or a Westringia, but either way, if it's an Eremophila nivea, purpley blue flowers, and if it's a Westringia, bluey purple flowers. So he likes hanging around with the blue. Have you got a bower in your garden, Molly?
No, I don't.
So what do they do in your garden?
They will generally move through, they're mostly fruit eaters, but they'll move through in search of sort of insects and things. So I tend to find that they'll sort of come through and generally come through my Melaleucas, actually, and have a bit of a squiz around. I did quite a few years ago have a little grapevine that I lovingly planted along a lattice that grew pretty badly. And I got one bunch of grapes off it, and the bowerbirds just demolished it, and it was fine. I wasn't going to be dining on it or making myself a homemade bottle of wine, so I kind of left them to it. But they certainly came in for that at the time as well, and they'll raid a veggie patch at any opportunity as well. So tomato season coming up, they'll probably come back for that.
Yeah. I can't remember whether it was one of my regular Twitter correspondents, whether it was Patrick or Peter or even Chris, I can't remember. But the satin bowerbirds visiting their garden plays havoc with their veggie garden, scratching about all the time. So they're obviously turning soil over, looking for invertebrates. So, yeah, apart from being, frugivores, fruit eaters mostly, obviously supplementing with the wormies and buggies and things like that.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. And something they're probably more often doing sort of around now in breeding season when they're feeding chicks and sort of getting some protein into little growing chicks is a good time for eating invertebrates.
Now, somebody added to your Twitter thread, so let's have a look here. Mr. SN Rub. Oh, one follower. I'll tell you what, that almost earns a ban for me usually, one follower. But here we go. Let's have a look. This is Percy, the common bronzewing. Which is hanging out. Yeah. They are delightful birds to have around, sound amazing, and once they're used to you, they are really quite bold, aren't they? Like they will come and I used to have common and brush bronzewings when I lived in Gippsland, and they would live in different parts of the neighbourhood. Just on one side of the house, we had where my place was sort of changed from the woodland to the grassy, dominated by tufty and acacias and Melaleucas going down to the lakes, and then the other side, like basically the house was the divider. The other side of the garden and it was woodland, eucalypt woodland. The commons would live in the woodland, and the brush bronzewings, the bluey ones, would live in the tufty, grassy kind of stuff. So, and my place met, and I was feeding birds, and they would both come in. But the common bronzewing, far more approachable and would never eat out of my hands or whatever, but were more likely to come to the feeding dish, which was very close to our back door.
Beautiful they're quite a tolerant bird, and all of those, the bronzewings, crested pigeons too, have that I think they get sort of glanced over because they kind of, unless you're really looking at sort of the wing pattern and stuff, they kind of look a little bit drab. They're fascinating birds. They have those beautiful patterns on them, but their behaviour is really interesting. I mean, look at this chonky little guy. Like he's just loving life. He's gorgeous. Crested pigeons too, getting around. Always males are always trying to impress a female, and bronzewings sort of the same. They're always putting on a show, and they're really fun to watch.
Far less active, I would have said, than the crested pigeons or crested bronzewings. What's the correct terminology nowadays? I think crested pigeon, isn't it? But when I grew up, they were the crested bronzewing.
Oh, really? No, crested pigeon is what I've always known them as. Yeah.
They seem to be far more randy and far more active than than either of the bronzewings. But they were really interesting to watch because I felt like they were watching me as well, like really studying as well. Comments here from Stan over on Kangaroo Island. How are you, Stan? What bronzewings have you got on KI? That's what I would like to know. Have you got them both, or have you got the common bronzewing? That used to be called the forest bronzewing when I was a kid. We had the forest bronzewing and the brush bronzewing, but then that changed to common.
Have a look.
What have you got in your...
Looks like you get both.
Yeah, very, very, very cool. What do you have around you, Holly?
I don't think I've ever seen a bronzewing around my place, I have to say. I don't think they're very common. You certainly get them around Wollongong, but not common at all. I don't know whether it's just a little bit too coastal and the escarpment sort of, they're just not coming down to the town. There's certainly records of them around, but not a lot.
Yeah. Stan, that bird in the pictures here is a common bronzewing. I'm putting myself out there. I'm pretty sure that's right, Holly. Would you agree with me there?
Yeah, I think so.
We don't have anywhere near that sort of bluish tint, and also the sort of slightly yellowish eye stripe that the brush bronzewing has, and also not the yellowy forehead. So marvelous birds. So that was what we had there. I'll unshare that because I'm going to look at my notifications and I don't know what they might say. So let's see if anyone else is giving us some comments. No, it's all about...
Sorry.
No, go ahead. I'm just seeing lots of insect homes and bat boxes there. And, here we are. Judy Leach is just... Yeah, so that's just popped up. Let's have a look at that one.
Yeah.
So I have to reshare this. Here we are. That is a ripper, Judy. That is a ripper. I've got a story about the white-faced heron.
Me too. You go first.
No, you go first.
Oh no! Look, I was just going to say they are. Well, I've got a couple. Firstly, they're around. They're not in my garden, but they're around my place at the moment. I have a little creek near just down the road, but no great water source nearby. But there is 3-4 of them that are hanging around a couple of streets over on a couple of roofs. I'm seeing them like every day hanging out on somebody's high rooftop, and often see them sort of flying to and forth from somewhere nearby. So they're always a weird one to see in a really suburban sense, I find, probably because they're a water bird. But yeah, they're hanging around. They must be nesting somewhere nearby, but they sort of pick these sort of high roofs at the moment to sort of keep an eye on the neighbourhood. So I'm really enjoying seeing them around really close to my place at the moment. But, I always associate them. You see maybe 1 or 2 together. Like in this case, there sort of seems to be 3 or 4 that are hanging around. But our BirdLife office in Sydney is at Sydney Olympic Park, and it's at the old Armoury. It's a great space, whole heap of grassland, woodland behind us. And I can remember going in there to work a few years ago now, and there'd been a lot of rain, and came down the hill towards the office, and there would have been 50 of them all foraging on the grassland. And it was both amazing and really disconcerting, I think, when you see birds in a situation or in numbers that you don't normally associate them with. So I remember coming over the hill and just seeing this mass of white-faced herons and just being totally, flabbergasted. It was very, very cool to see.
Where I grew up on the Mornington Peninsula was very different to how it is now, and it was mostly farmland, and we also had the fringes of Western Port there as well. But in the farm areas, I would often see, I don't know if I would say hundreds of white-faced herons, but several dozens, but also never as many, but lots of white-necked herons as well. And I haven't seen that for 20, 30 years anywhere, even my driving from Melbourne all the way back down to Gippsland through all that farmland and past water treatment works where would see lots of ducks, lots of ibis, different varieties of ibis. It's really only ever 1, 2 or 3 herons together mostly. Cattle egrets are the sort of exception to that. I wonder whether it's because there's less of them that they are not occurring in such densities, or I'm wondering whether maybe the habitat is so altered that they're now in different places where those numbers are actually occurring in areas with less people. Need some data, but we'll have to wait for the Aussie bird count to come out and maybe tell us, compare the historicals.
I'm just going to have a bit of a look at Carly Campbell's latest paper to see about prevalence of white-faced herons, because she looked at water birds as well as sort of terrestrial species. So I'll
cool.
have a dive in and have a look.
You'll have to share that one with me too. I did see a really cool, going off topic here, but I did see a really good paper that I was reading yesterday, haven't finished yet when it comes up. Mini safe havens for population recovery and reintroductions beyond the fence. Did you see that one? In biodiversity and conservation.
Excellent.
Kira J. Smith, Maldwin J. Evans, Ian J. Gordon, Jennifer C. Pearson, Simon Stratford and Adrian D. Manning, which was revised and accepted only on the 19th of October, so brand new.
Okay, brand new.
Looking at how do you manage populations when they have been in a safe space and then you are reintroducing them to non-predator fenced or predator-controlled areas. So good. There's all sorts of really good work happening out there, isn't there?
Yeah, there's so much. Carly's work, I'm just quickly looking at her paper now. I'll pop the link through to you as well. So in Sydney, there's been a slight increase in prevalence over time, but not much. Likewise in Melbourne. And then in Brisbane, it looks like they've had quite a decrease in prevalence over time. So state by state, different situations going on.
Interesting. I'll tell you my story, my white-faced heron story, and it's a sad one, but I must have been 9-year-old or 10-year-old Grant had an aviary, a big box aviary, and I'd just made the decision. Maybe I was 11. Yeah, maybe I was 11. I'd made the decision that I didn't want to have birds in cages anymore, and I got rid of my Burke's parrots and my starfinches and my king quails and whatnot. So I had this big box on the back veranda, and it was like big enough to put a car in. So it was actually a transport container. And because I'd had finches, it was full of brush that I'd cut and everything, and a couple of perches, as aviaries often are. And I found this white-faced heron not far from the back door, and it was not moving very much. So I think it might have been my very first encounter with bird strike, or else it was sick from eating something or whatever. But of course I wanted to look after it because it was dogs or anything could have got it. So I bought it and put it into my aviary, and then I went out and caught a whole heap of frogs and tadpoles and whatnot, and fed it, hand-fed it, looked after it. As kids do. I'm sitting there sort of trying to look after it and get some water and make sure it's got everything. In the morning, it was dead. So I don't know what killed it, or we didn't take it to the vet and get an autopsy or anything done. But they're beautiful birds up close, like really beautiful birds. But I should have twigged there was something wrong with it because he didn't try to peck me to death. He had the beautiful breeding plumage, the nuptial plumage on it. It was a stunning bird, but I don't know, maybe it had eaten something that wasn't good to eat.
It's never a good sign when they are that placid and able to be handled. It's always a really dire situation by that point. Yeah.
So I did like Judy's comment up here too, Holly, more of a bird than a garden bird. Yeah.
Yeah. Having said that, I can remember some people. In a couple of instances through Birds in Backyards, you get the opportunity to people sharing great stories with you, and having white-faced herons show up in their backyard because they've got a fish pond, and hanging around for a week and then disappearing, and then when they check the fish pond, there's no more fish left. So they can certainly be a backyard or a garden bird in some instances if you've got the right conditions. They certainly like to pay a visit.
Got another one to share here, Holly, too.
Excellent.
So this is great. Good on you on Twitter for jumping in and showing us this. Weatherboard. On Jar Jar Warong land. Where do you know off the top of your head where that is? I don't know that either.
Bendigo.
Very good, very good. Well,
it says in his tweet, right?
Oh, there we go. I'm too busy looking at the picture. All our backyard birds in Bendigo have so many offspring. Yeah, it's been a great year. If you haven't been flooded out, the amount of rain that we've had mean it's been a fantastic year. I mean, I showed off in one of my hashtag first seen and heard things recently how long the grass was in the park, it's been cut today, so now we'll probably have birds checking out tomorrow if it dries out a little bit. For all those insects that were living among the grass stems will now be hiding under the cut grass, so they'll be probably have the ravens and the magpies scratching it to pieces, and maybe the starlings and whatnot as well will come in. But yeah, wattlebirds. Let's have a look. Red wattlebirds, they're definitely the fledglings.
Yes.
There.
Yep.
Very, very nice. I love the yellow patches on the red wattlebirds.
Me too.
Oh, there we are, getting a bit of exercise. Haven't we all got a walker? Oh, I don't anymore, but haven't we all got a walker stuck out either in the shed or in the out on the veranda in the corner that we don't use anymore?
Yes.
Beautiful, beautiful. So
Lovely.
thank you for that, weatherboard. Lovely, 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 lovely. All right, let's take that off. Now, Holly, let's just invite those who are watching to jump in with their. We've had Stan, Mon, I know you're here. What's your favourite visitor to your garden? And Mon generally takes some photos and shares them on Twitter of what she's seeing. Oh, Mon. Look, Mon, I'm hiding because I'm doing the unveil next week, but it's arrived and my lenses have arrived, so I'll be joining you shortly with that, Mon. So Photography Friday will be back very soon. What's your favourite, Mon, bird that pops into your garden? And let's open it up now to your favourite bird experience. Now, I'm really interested to hear this for you, Holly, because remember when I first put the little graphics together for the Monday with Holly, and you sent me a picture of you with, what was it, the sooty owl?
Oh, it's a barn owl.
Sorry, it's a barn owl.
Yeah.
A barn owl sitting on your shoulder. What's your favourite encounter with a bird?
I've got a couple.
You can have a couple.
Yeah. I'm going to share.
You can have 100 if you want.
Oh, look, just about every encounter. Like, there's always I think that's a great thing about birds in Australia is there is such a diverse range that live with us that you encounter like these amazing birds all the time. Like watching the white-faced herons like getting around my neighbourhood and confusing the hell out of me has been really exciting for the last week or so. Maybe that's an indictment on my life, but anyway. Look, I have one of those childhood memories too of coming home from a neighbour's birthday party, and my parents' house, where they still are, had a park next to it, and then it used to be agricultural land beyond that. There was blackberries and long grass and cattle, and you could just go and roam and stuff before you got to the escarpment. Great space. That's all houses now, of course. But our neighbours used to have the last house right at the top of the hill before the agricultural area, and we were walking back from their birthday party, and we found what in my head now I think must have been a kestrel. I can still half picture it in my head, but I don't know how much I've changed it over the years. In the gutter, so it had it might have been a bird strike or it's zapped itself on the power lines or something. And us taking it home and looking after it for a few days to a week, I think, off the top of my head. And so I have these sort of pieces of memories of us finding that bird and taking it home, and now doing all the things that I would never advise people to do. Don't handle a bird of prey. Don't take a bird and rehabilitate it yourself. You have to take them to a wildlife rescue carer or vet. But that memory is in my head of looking after this little bird of prey, and I can still remember it flying off from our backyard, which was pretty special. I have also, another really great memory I have is holding an eastern ground parrot, that had been misnetted and banded, which was pretty awesome. I haven't done anywhere near as much banding as I would have liked to, but was doing a course at Barron Grounds on the just near me with uni, and we were helping out some misnetting that was going on in the heathland. And so we're waiting patiently, and they caught 5 ground parrots, and here we were all young and naive going, oh God, 5 birds. Like, man, this was a long process for 5 birds. And the researcher who was leading the banding just looked at us and was going, no, we've never caught 5. Like, this is extraordinary. So what we assumed must have been an average day in the office for these guys was like a real highlight. But I got the opportunity to take the bird out of the bag and release it, and so holding this big oversized budgie was pretty extraordinary. That's a clear favourite too.
Bloomin' marvellous. Marvellous. Just talk among yourselves for just a second, because I'm going to if I can find it.
I can probably fill the space and talk about some more, maybe.
Actually, talk about just talk about 1 or 2 more, and then we can talk about.
Look, I'll share mine, and then one more that I can think of, and then I will. Our Instagram, there's been some nice messages of people sharing their favourite garden birds too, so I'll sort of talk about those as well. I guess another one I can think of that didn't involve actual contact with the bird, but I remember thinking was pretty amazing, was when I was on maternity leave with my now almost 6-year-old, and was taking her out somewhere, and the process of putting I think 6-month-old or something in the car at that point, and drove around the block and past the local park, which is just at the end of just down from our house, and watched these birds fly into the eucalypts and went, they look like bazzers, and and went, what? Because there was 4 of them, I think, off the top of my head. So even though I had just got the kid in the car, I went back to the house and got my binoculars to race back down, and she was happy in the car while I poked my head out with my binoculars and watched this family of bazzers hanging around in my little local park. I've seen bazzers in other places. I've never seen them anywhere near sort of there. I don't even know. I thought I was sleep deprived and imagining things, but I'm pretty confident in what I saw. I saw the crest. I saw them. Yeah. I saw them with the binoculars. It was amazing.
Yeah, you can't mistake them if you get a good look at them. Now, I love how often we'll be having a conversation like this, and one thing just leads to another. Let me just say, this is an overlay for what I'm doing at 2:00 with Sarah Comer. But you mentioned, look at that. That's the Western ground parrots, some being released by the department team that Sarah is part of there. So there we go. There's a Western ground parrot, one of the birds that was translocated and released. So we'll talk about that a bit later, but I just thought we'd touch on that since you mentioned handling the Eastern ground parrot.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a story about bazzers, and it's actually one of my best encounter with a bird, simply because it was so unexpected. Years and years ago, we're talking 1997-ish, I think it was. And I had a Land Rover, and I drove to Brisbane to go and visit some friends from Melbourne. And then I liked Brisbane so much, I moved there for a year or so. I actually drove back to Melbourne and said, hey, Dad, Brisbane's cool. I'm leaving. So I just basically packed up my stuff and went. And being up there, I had the opportunity to work in a job that let me go and visit people in far-flung parts of Queensland because none of the other people in the company wanted to follow up any of the leads in rural and regional Queensland. So I said, give them all to me. I'll go. So heading to Gladstone, there's where you are on the Bruce Highway, and then there's a turn off to go right down to Gladstone, and it's sort of on this overpass, and under the overpass there's this sort of campground or rest spot. So I was tired, so I thought I'd pull up with a Land Rover and relax, make a cuppa and whatnot. And I was sitting there and I heard this call I'd never heard before. I looked up and there is one buzzer. Hang on, there's two. Hang on, there's three. So there you go. No, I wasn't going bird watching. I wasn't looking for anything, and I saw them. First time, so that would have been Lifer. Naomi's got, hello Naomi, nice to see you. That's actually the first time I saw a buzzer. I thought it was a chunky crested pigeon. Yes, they do look a bit pigeonish, except the way they sit upright. I had to take a photo because I was confused, and I got an ID. Great, beautiful,
awesome,
unmistakable. Yes.
Not that a crested pigeon is not a nice sighting, but
no.
That's
sure,
really
sure.
Going up a level.
For sure.
That's awesome.
Now, on the same tack, this is another one of my favourite encounters with birds, and I've recounted it before. But again, when I was living in Brisbane, or in Queensland, and I had this box of contacts where people didn't want to go but needed to be fired up. Jambin. Have you heard of Jambin?
No.
Jambin's a farming region inland of Biloela. And, of course, Biloela, so central Queensland again, is been in the news because of the Biloela family. So I've decided I'll go and see these people that need to be visited in Jambin. And I've stopped the Land Rover, opened up the gate, looked over to the dead tree, which is 15 metres or so away from the gate. Grey falcon, just sitting there. Checking.
Wow. Yeah.
Only time they could see me from the homestead, like from the house, at the gate, and I was there for about 25 minutes, getting a few different angles.
Wow.
That awesome. Can't be a grey falcon. Like, nobody gets to see grey falcons, so it can't be a grey falcon. But that was a grey falcon. Back in the days before mobile phones or anything, so I couldn't snap a picture or anything. I'm just looking at this thing. Anyway, I had to go and keep the appointment, so I had to leave. I went down to the homestead and they, what are you doing? I said, grey falcon. There's a grey falcon there. Have you got a grey falcon around here? You ever seen it? What? A what? So, yeah, they thought I was loony, or they thought that something must have happened. I must have blown a radiator or thrown a gearbox or something. Are you all right? Everything all right? Oh, fine, mate. There was a grey falcon. So there we are. There's two of my bird stories.
Look, I feel like I'm more known for the birds that I don't see. When I have deliberately gone out to find a rare species, never happens.
Stop,
yeah,
Holly.
Okay. Is that a new episode? Do we need to follow?
No, stop. I'm going to interrupt you before you go on.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you should have been here last week. Is that what you always hear? Oh.
Yeah, or literally the day before or the day after.
Or yesterday, yeah. I was here yesterday and there were 15 of them. Fair income. Yeah. But how often is that just bullshit?
Oh.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Well, you would go, oh, well, show me your photos of them then. That's right. All right. What have you missed out on, Mush?
Okay, so the two big ones. So I missed out on a noisy pitter, which I've seen a noisy pitter before, but this was in Sydney, which they They pop up weirdly sometimes outside our office at BirdLife. This pitter showed up and was hanging out on the edge of the armory directly across from Silverwater Jail. Everyone had been in the days before and the days after, had seen this noisy pitter hanging around. I, as much as I could, scope out next to a jail, like walked that, looking for this bloody pitter. Never saw it. No. It was there the day after. My other was a Regent Honeyeater that showed up at Wollongong Botanic Gardens, and this was maybe 2-3 years ago now. It showed up at the gardens, and so I was like, well, here I go. I'm off. I grabbed my binoculars. I think every other birder who went into the gardens in that week or so spotted that bird. I traipsed around that gardens for hours and did not find, and that was just holding out hope that I would get to see a Regent Honeyeater in the wild, and it did not happen.
Tell me something. This is what I often wonder about, and because we haven't spoken since we haven't spoken on air since the bird count was completed, and really enjoyed actually going out and doing my count every day, and I'm trying to keep my eBird going, but I can't. I'm not doing the same time every day. I was trying to stick to that, but it's just isn't working. Do you think that as more people are out there looking, that explains a little bit some of these weird sightings that we're seeing? Like, do you reckon a lot of these weird sightings would be happening anyway, but there's just as many people are out there looking?
Oh, yeah. Look, I don't know. I really don't know. I guess it depends on who's doing the looking. Like, there's certainly more people interested, especially during Bird Week. You know, we get huge uptake of people going out and doing that. Give us
an idea. Do you know how many individual people were participating this year? And you don't have to give us the exact number, but compared to 10 years ago, I'm guessing that you're probably 30%, maybe 40% up. Or more.
Beyond that. Well and truly. You know, the bird count, so what, it's been 7 years since we started the Aussie bird count, and that the numbers of people that have been involved have exponentially gone up.
So
I think we got
10,000, 20,000?
We got about 95,000 people doing counts this year, I think.
95,000 individuals doing it. Well, that is stunning. That's stunning. That's great.
So prior to around 2012, 2013, you know, we had sort of membership for BirdLife, but sort of not a lot more beyond that. And so we were sort of looking at sort of about 12,000 people. Our supporter reach now is 200,000 people. That was why I picked massive growth. Yeah,
that was why I picked 70,000 out, because I was looking at the sort of interactiveness on a lot of the socials. Oh, by the way, Holly, you said people have been interacting on Instagram.
Yes.
If you're on Instagram and you want to interact in the sessions with Holly, Facebook Live. If you're on Instagram, you basically got all the Facebook stuff. So get into it. That's where Naomi's talking to us from.
Yes,
on
absolutely.
Facebook.
From Facebook.
Naomi, you're in the Jimmy Barnes region of New South Wales. What do you call that? That's the Central Highlands, isn't it? The Don Bradman region. What's your favourite garden bird, Naomi, that pops into your garden, visiting your huge Angophora that you've told me about before? Pop that in. And those others of you who are here, what's your favourite visitor to your garden, or your most astounding, most amazing, or just downright favourite bird encounters? One of my other favourite bird encounters that I've had, Holly, and this was again down at Gippsland, was when I was feeding off the back deck there, and I would sometimes give tidbits of meat to the magpies and whatnot. But my favourite bird that that I was able to interact with there was a grey butcherbird, and there were a pair there, and often regularly had a couple of offspring, and they would come and take the meat from my hands, which nowadays I don't suggest that you do that, but it was really great because I got to see and experience how very different the personalities of the butcherbirds are to the magpies, which is their cousins. Now, Stan's mentioned the New Holland Honeyeater. That's his favourite visitor to his garden, I would say. And hello, Ian. Pair of grey butcherbirds,
yeah.
I agree. That's the song of the butcherbird, both the pied and the grey, is just fantastic. Yeah. We used to have some around here, but I haven't heard them for. I mean, who can accurately determine time since the lockdowns? I don't know whether I haven't heard them for 3 years or 1 year, but it's certainly, I think it's about definitely two breeding seasons, maybe another one since we've heard them. And what's Naomi said? She's got the very young fairy wren, superb fairy wren, rose robin. How lucky is Naomi having the rose robin in her garden? Yeah, the yellow robin. We've talked about this actually before on another stream, Holly. I was tempted to say the yellow robin is my favourite experience because I used to love seeing them in the bush, but also at home when doing gardening, they would come and do what you often see in the English robin photos and videos where they'll come and land on your spade, on the handle of your spade or your shovel, and the yellow robin, the eastern yellow robin here, definitely does that.
Yeah, they're lovely. They're one of the ones too, when I was doing field work way back when, if there was an eastern yellow robin around, they would just be, you'd be doing your little transect and you'd be toppling along with you, a bit like grey fantails. Similarly, grey fantails love to know what you're up to and will follow you along through the bush. They're really, really sweet. I asked some BirdLife staff about their favourites, and grey fantails popped up as being a favourite. One of them, and things like gangs as well being another favourite for a lot of staff as well.
We talked about gangs last week, Holly. That was fun.
Yes.
Actually, that's the episode where I swore too much, apparently, Holly. So, and Bird of the Year, New Zealand, rock wren. Good on you.
Fantastic.
What I was just going to say, which has totally gone out of my head. What were we talking about? Butcherbirds and
butcherbirds.
Eastern yellow robin.
Your robins.
When I was living in Melbourne, but had to go to Gippsland basically every week because I had an invalid father, so I had to go and put the bins out or stuff like that. That was what I'd do. I'd go and drive 3.5 hours each way to put the bins out. But what I used to love when I arrived was to hear the eastern yellow robin. That beep, beep, beep call, that piping call, whatever you want to call it, that sort of made me relax, unwind straight away when I heard that. So, they're a beauty, aren't they? They're an absolute beauty.
Really sweet.
Fairy wrens. What's your favourite fairy wren? You've seen so many of them, and we've talked to Joe a couple of times about fairy wrens. Dr. Joe, how are you, Dr. Joe, if you see this? Have you got a favourite fairy wren?
Oh, look, I'm basic. I love a superb, man.
Superb.
They're my ones. I would love to see some, purple crowns and things I haven't had the opportunity to see. But I love my Superbs. I studied them for a long time. They're still my absolute favourites for sure.
Still the one.
Still the one. They are tattooed on my arm.
Still the one.
Amazing.
I've got the Twitter feed going up in the other in my other window, and it's good. We're not getting a lot of likes and retweets for that for our topic, but we're not getting many people adding stuff in. But I am getting people talking about this, Holly. So here's where I get to
yes.
First seen and heard. I want to promote this because it's about extending the reach and spreading the message. So each morning I do a different one for Instagram / Facebook, Twitter and YouTube. I do a little short for YouTube. I just go out and I say first bird I heard for the day, for the morning, and the first thing I've seen. So it'd be great if you get involved, and that is really simple. Just do the old hashtag first seen and heard. Got some really good regular contributors. Mon often jumps in with hers with a photo accompanying. Deb from down in Gippsland is always jumping in. That's good to see. It's amazing how many people watch the shorts on YouTube. I've only had one really bad bit of feedback too, so that was good. Someone being just nasty and ageist, but that's people are like that, aren't they, Holly?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Now let's talk about this. That's my Mastodon handle. Okay. People are talking about Twitter going to crash and burn. I hope it doesn't, because that's the basis of my social media following is on Twitter. But I think it's wise just in case. So I've got a little directory that I'm inviting people to submit themselves for. So if you go to thebirdemergency.com/Mastodon, you'll see the first, 15 or 20 people where I'm collecting their Twitter handles and their Mastodon handles, so that if you've got a favourite person that you want to follow, or you would like to go onto the directory, you can either @ me on Twitter or Facebook, let's stick to Twitter. Or you can email me, and that's news@thebirdemergency, and I'll add you to the list. Fun fact, I watch a lot of American political media, independent stuff mostly. Elon Musk has to pay in interest on what he borrowed to buy Twitter. Apart from him tanking Tesla's stock price, he has to pay more in interest than the revenue that Twitter earns each year. So it just can't be long for this world. It will be sold off to someone else if it exists. But maybe he wanted it to die. Who knows? But there is another option if you don't want to do the meta way. Mastodon's a bit clunky, easy to learn, a bit difficult to learn, but we're there. We're all starting to get there. So, yeah. What's your handle on Mastodon, Holly?
It's non-existent at the moment. I'm sure it will happen at some point. Yes, I have to wrap my head around everything that's going on. And, yeah.
Okay, now a couple of other things that we need to talk about in the news. Toondah.
Yes.
Now, those Twitter handles above me are the people who need to be talked to about Toondah. Holly, that's the hashtag. That's where you can sign the petition. Why am I banging on about Toondah all the time?
Because Toondah is a potential proposed development that is going to remove significant migratory shorebird habitat. It is a Ramsar-listed international significant site that the Walker Corporation is wanting to turn into a luxury development in Queensland. And so the EIS is out, and BirdLife Australia is one of many organisations and individuals who are fighting against this development. So you can go to actforbirds.org /Save Toondah, or just go to .org and you'll find the website. You can add your comments to a statement about the EIS. You can sign petitions. You can read up more information about it. There is a lot going on at BirdLife on the Toondah Harbour campaign. So check out that website and see all about it and add your voice so we can get this hideous development stopped.
What are the deadlines, Holly? Like, do you know when the when the decisions are being made?
So the public has got until December 6th to comment on the proposal. So to comment on the impact statement and get their information in. And BirdLife will be putting forward a submission, of course, of our own, but also encouraging everybody to add their own comments as well. And also there are a range of other actions that BirdLife is going to be undertaking in the lead up to that December 6th deadline and beyond, I'm sure, as well.
Yeah. So the December 6th deadline is for getting submissions in and when the petitions will be delivered and things like that. But that's not the end of it, is there? Even if the decision goes against the curlews and the shorebirds, there are other actions that can be taken. Now, folks, we're getting to the end. After we've said goodbye, I'm going to play the BirdLife video that was produced about Toondah Harbour, because we've both got to jump out in a second. Let me just get this up, Holly, because we... I've got to add another. It's not working, Crowley. Oh, no. Sorry, everyone. I'm just trying to... I'm trying to put up the... I think I have to delete that one. I think that's why. I think I've got too many banners. Oh, I know what. Sorry. My computer started to do something where it just shifts the window down just a little bit, and then I can't see what's at the very bottom of the screen. Okay. That is where to go if you have not signed the petition. That is where to go. So it's actforbirds.org /Save Toondah. If you're active on social media, hashtag Toondah and sending tweets and Facebooks and whatnot to Megan Scanlon. She's the Minister for Environment in Queensland. Stephen J. Miles, Minister for Planning and Deputy Premier in Queensland. And, of course, Tanya Plibersek, who is the Minister for Environment. I'm not going to say Minister for Conservation because I haven't seen any evidence of that yet, in the federal government. Ian has a comment. Years ago, the same company, that would be Walker Corporation, wanted to build a canal estate. Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? They always want to do something where they've got to stuff things up and do pretend luxury. Who wants to live? Hasn't the Gold Coast proved for everyone that canals are just places where mosquitoes and can breed, or that bull sharks can come in and stop people swimming in. I mean, they're supposed to be luxury and all that. Such rubbish. Anyway, yeah, I'm with you, Ian. Now, Walker Corporation, I don't think that's Ron Walker. I don't think it's his disciples, his scions. But yeah, property developers are very powerful in our political system. So yeah, if you care, get involved. Holly, let's just ask for the last time if anyone wants to share their favourite garden bird visitor or their favourite encounter with birds or anything else that you might want to say. Here's the last chance. While Holly tells me what's coming up in the next little while, apart from the Toondah campaign, what's Holly focusing on at BirdLife, and what's BirdLife more generally focusing on the next month or so in the run-up to Christmas?
Goodness, yeah, it feels like everything's sort of wrapping up for the year. I can't believe it is almost the end of the year. So BirdLife Australia, we ourselves, and we have amazing vetters who are going through the Aussie bird count data at the moment and vetting everything, and so getting some analysis done on the findings. I can't give you an exact deadline for when results will be out, but hopefully before the end of the year.
Just in the secret back channel communications you've been having, anything amazing popped up that anyone's looked at and gone, oh my God, a grey falcon in Melbourne?
Look, not as far as I have heard yet, but leave it with us. I think it's going to be really interesting to see numbers this year. I think flooding and the rain has meant that I think bird numbers are going to be down a little bit.
Or the distribution will be crazy.
We got lots of feedback from people saying, well, I wanted to do it, but it rained all week. So I think there's going to be some patchy data this year. But, it is what it is. We forge on. So there'll be some results coming out soon. Toondah Harbour is, of course, our big campaign that's ongoing. So if people go to the Act for Birds website on the Save Toondah Harbour page, if you're in Greater Brisbane, there's going to be some events coming up this week that you can go along to learn about how to write submissions and to join in some workshops on the campaign. So there's information on that Act for Birds website that people can join. In terms of the urban team at BirdLife, we're sort of summing up the year. If you liked doing the Aussie bird count, you can do a Birds in Backyard survey, which is your count of what's going on in your garden and some information about what your garden is like. So we have our summer survey opening up at the start of December. So join us for that. We're going to have some more results we're going to be sharing in the coming weeks about some of the birds that people are seeing and what sort of habitat features are attracting them. And then personally, I'm off to to an in-person conference, and I am so excited to see people and really terrified that I'm going to get COVID again because it's all coming back. But the Ecological Society of Australia and the Society for Conservation Biology are holding a joint conference in a couple of weeks, and it's in my town in Wollongong, and I am very, very excited to talk to some amazing people that I haven't seen in person for a very long time, and to learn about some amazing work that's going on around the country. I'm very excited. I
wonder if Daryl's going to that.
Don't think he is.
He's just done his worldwide tour.
Yeah.
And who we're talking about is Daryl Jones, who we've spoken to a couple of times on the show, but also he is one of the authors of the Carly Campbell paper that you told us about, which is Big Changes in Backyard Birds, an analysis of long-term changes in bird communities in Australia's most populous urban communities. Holly, that prompts me to think we need to get Carly on to talk about it. There's some really cool graphs in there that I've just been looking at. So, yeah, that would be great to get Carly on for a session with you and to talk about that. And who knows, maybe Daryl would want to jump back in as well. Of course, Daryl is the Birds at My Table.
Daryl Jones, yes.
Man. So, yes. So, Holly, I think that's where we can sort of say goodbye to everyone, and we'll put the Toondah video on and we'll say the proper goodbye at the end of this vid. So This is what the Toonda's all about. So please, if you haven't got on board, do get on board, and this will explain why.
Eastern curlew is a critically endangered bird. It migrates from Alaska and Siberia back to Toonda Harbour. They fly between 9,000 and 11,000 kilometres. They come back, they're skinny, they're exhausted, and they use the time here to fatten up.
The immediate area, it's a feeding area for eastern curlew. If you remove a feeding area, they are not able to put on weight for the long migratory journeys.
And they want to build high-rise apartments.
It must be a no-go area. Developing out onto the mudflats is totally unacceptable.
Well, Toonda Harbour is a very important habitat. It's part of Moreton Bay. The migratory shorebirds actually spend up to 9 months a year here.
These birds feed and live on mudflats.
These birds come back to Australia. They spend more time here than anywhere else. So to say that we're going to put in a large, concrete, glitzy archipelago when that actually means trash a Ramsar site, no, not acceptable.
This is public land and they're giving it to a private developer, taking away something that belongs to all of us.
When Raby Bay was built, within 2 years, 5,000 birds that used to roost near that area had totally gone. They totally disappeared. So for the developers to say that, this is going to have no real impact is not true. The fact is that under national and international law, migratory shorebirds are all protected. The advice was this development is clearly unacceptable, and yet they totally ignore it.
When the minister goes against what the Department of Environment says, there's something to worry about.
Why have an international action plan and yet not do everything in its power to set the example? It will be a national shame if this development is given approval.
Become curious. Discover the amazing natural world that surrounds you, and then become active.
We've been fighting this for a few years now, but we're certainly not giving up.
These areas are important. They're important for birds. They're also important for people. So we need to learn to share the shorelines. We can live and we can have development where nature is a part of that development and is protected.
I've been coming here for 30 years, and it's my most dearest wish that my children and their children will be coming in here for another 50 years, and that they'll see and they'll appreciate what I'm seeing.
Really good job on that video, Holly. I don't know who actually produced it and who shot it, but it's really good. And donating is one thing, but if you've already signed the petition, still go to actforbirds.org/Save Toonda and share that video out to everyone in your socials, because it tells the story without you needing to try and explain about the Far Eastern curlew and why they're important, and so that's a really good tool. Let's use it, and And if you don't know much about the Far Eastern curlews, we've got 2 episodes of the Bird Emergency. We've got 3 curlew episodes. We've got Amanda Lillyman, Harry Sadler, and Mary Colwood. And then we've got Wimbrels as well with Camilla Carnieri. So, shorebirds are really important, and they're so under threat.
So amazing. They're extraordinary.
So do your bit. Be where's this thing? There we are. Be nice and polite, shit stirrer, and get active locally. There we are. Oh no, I've dropped another swear word, Holly. What's going to go on? Terrible. Thanks, Dr. Holly Parsons, Urban Birds Program Manager, the Birds in Backyards chick at BirdLife Australia. Can I call you that? Or
Sure.
Okay, good.
I've heard worse. It's fine.
Great. So yeah, and you can do if you still got the bug for doing surveys and bird counts, do a Birds in Backyards survey. So birdsinbackyards.net.
Jump onto our social media and share your favourite birds. Every so often I do this and I love it. I love hearing what people's favourite birds are and hearing about their bird experiences. I think taking the time to connect back with your local birds and think about what you love about them, I think is a really fun thing to do. And I love hearing people's stories.
Absolutely. And if you are looking for a safe haven and you want to get involved in just having an off-ramp for Twitter, that's what I'm doing. I hope Twitter doesn't go away because we've got a lovely bird Twitter community there. But if it does, we need to have somewhere where we can have a soft landing. So just head to thebirdemergency.com/Mastodon and find some like-minded people, and there you can find out how you can get added to that list. Holly, thanks. Been great. Enjoy your fortnight. Are we looking at another fortnight's time? What would that be? About the 28th, the end of the month.
That is when I am at a conference, Grant. So it's going to.
So we're looking at the 5th of
the
5th of the 5th. Okay, that'll be great. So that's when you can maybe expect to see Holly again. That's getting close to end of the year and Christmassy, but
yeah.
But the birds will
probably
still be here.
A little bit dusty and a little bit tired, but really excited to share maybe some info.
Yeah, tell us some of the highlights from the conference.
Yeah,
that would be great. If you got access to any great papers or anything, let me know.
Sure thing. There'll be a Twitter handle, I'm sure, to follow during that week as well.
Make sure you send it to me because I'll miss
Will
it,
do.
no doubt. I'll be too busy ranting about they're not doing enough for Gordian finches or something. So, yeah. Thanks, everyone. I'm Grant. I'm a bird nerd. You can find me there or hang on Twitter there. And you can find Holly at Urban Birdo. No, Backyard Birdo. There's an Urban Birdo as well, which I always get you confused with, but it's no Backyard Birdo.
So my own Twitter handle is at Backyard Birdo. Our Urban Birds Twitter is at Urban Birds Oz, OZ. So follow either. I do both, so I'm crossing over all the time.
Ripper. Thanks, everyone.
Or Birds in Backyards at Instagram.
Of course. Piles of stuff on Birds in Backyards. That's it, Holly. Monday with
Grant.
Holly is done. See you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.